of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate.
Welcome to tonight's planning board meeting. Please be aware of the fire exit, which is to your left of this room. In the event of an emergency, please move in a calm and orderly fashion down the stairs and do not use the elevator. The meetings are recorded by the secretary for the purpose of a record and minutes. So please identify yourself each time you come to the podium and speak into the microphone. The board will follow the items in the order that they appear on the agenda, extra copies of which are near the door. After the case has been called, the applicant or the representative shall come to the podium, identify him or herself, and give his or her address, and then present their case. The planning board members will then have an opportunity to question the applicant. If this case is a public hearing, it will be open for public input, at which time anyone wishing to speak to the board regarding this application will come to the podium, identify themselves along with their address, and direct any questions to the board. Once all public input has been completed, the applicant or site representative will be given the opportunity to respond to any public input. Once all public input has been completed and all questions have been satisfied, the case will be closed to public input, and the board will then move on to a decision. No further input is allowed at this point. If you would introduce the first case, please.
First item on the agenda is case number PB 1306-1. Upon the matter of request by Land Tax Surveying and Planning, acting as agent for Gene Baldo, for subdivision approval and preliminary and final site plan approval to subdivide and construct a new single-family dwelling with site-related improvements on premises 210 Drake Drive in an R1 residential district.
Good evening. My name is Adam Freeman. I'm an engineer with Land Tech. It's pretty simple, as you stated. We've got a one-lot subdivision. It's going to be about 0.6 acres off of the 2.9 acre property. We meet all of the zoning requirements. They're going to connect to the existing utilities that were installed when the house that's out there was built. They did it with the anticipation of potential lots in the future. So the water service is already across the road, and there's a force main that's in, and there's a lateral left for connection to that. Other than that, it's they'll use the existing driveway, which again was designed with the anticipation of future lots. As you can see, it's labeled on the plans, so it's 18 feet wide, which is pretty typical, if not a little wider than necessary for 3 to 4 homes on a single access road.
And so we anticipate a third lot or another single lot subdivision out of that?
It's possible, depending on how he feels, I guess. But I think it's more of if somebody approaches him, he'll consider subdividing off another lot. But that would be the max that he would go would be one more, basically on the other side of the driveway from where this house is proposed.
The drawing seems to show the water service coming off the road. Is it coming off the road, or is it coming off the existing one?
It is coming off the road. There are 3 individual services that the Water Authority actually put all 3 in so that they didn't have to come back out and missile them across the road again. But there are curb boxes to connect to out by the road. So it'll come down the side of the driveway, basically alongside the water service for the existing house.
Is there an easement along that road, because the water service for this residence will be on the other side of it?
There's easement proposed, an ingress, egress, and utility easement that they're proposing.
There was some concern expressed at the workshop meeting 2 weeks ago about some kind of written agreement in terms of the maintenance of that egress, ingress. Has anything been done with that?
Not that I'm aware of. but I would imagine that it would be a shared, they would come up with a percentage of the maintenance costs up to the end of the easement line that would be shared. But at this point, I don't know that there's been any further discussion about that.
Jay, any questions?
Yeah, I have two questions, Mr. Chairman. I'll wait till I think the first one's to the attorney.
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes.
There was a concern also expressed by Greg last at the workshop about commercial vehicles on the property. And when I was there today, there's a dump truck. It's not a regular, it's not like a pickup truck or anything. It's a full-size dump truck. So do we have to put in the motion that we passed tonight the stipulation that no commercial vehicles are allowed on there, or
If that's your desire, I would recommend that you put it in.
because they're not normally, it's not on that property, it's on the property
I understand.
Do we have to put it in there, or is it part of the code that it's not supposed to be there?
That's my question too. I mean, if it is not permitted anywhere else, it should not be permitted here. And I would lead to Dan if that is something we need to do. But I mean, a number of us have seen, other than we have seen commercial vehicles there. So
Is the existing residence a home business occupancy?
I don't know that he has any sort of a permit to occupy.
Are any of these people the owners?
No.
The statute regarding commercial vehicles delineates the size and the scope of the vehicle. If you had a pickup truck with a commercial vehicle tag on it, I don't know that that's included. So if it's your desire to not have,
No, this is a real,
This is either the biggest pickup truck I've ever seen in my life, or it's a 10-wheel dump truck. I mean, it's not, this is a big unit. It's not,
without having seen it or measured it, because the size, it comes up more often in the zoning board, I think, because of people making applications to have commercial vehicles in R1 districts. And, I mean, literally, the measurement of the vehicle and then dump truck or gasoline-type truck are also included in the statute. And I haven't seen it. So, my recommendation would be, when you review it, you're entitled to put reasonable parameters around your application to be safe on this property. I don't see any objection, or I don't see any problem with saying you can't have a commercial-type vehicle.
may we add that for
well,
the two lots and whatever might be built?
Not whatever might be built, because you're not considering something in the future, but for that which you're considering this evening, you can say it.
Okay, fine.
well, it's not just for that, but it's all, I think can we put it for all homes in the subdivision?
Doing a subdivision,
This is now a subdivision, right?
you're
It's a
doing
subdivided.
subdivision approval, you could put it for the subdivision, yes.
And I would say with 100% certainty that this particular vehicle would not meet any of our statutes. It's a big, all
Then it would be redundant, but there's nothing wrong with that either.
right.
So I have a question, since we don't usually talk about the codes. Commercial vehicles, even if it's a pickup truck that they use for their
No.
business?
No, the code very specifically delineates what commercial vehicles are allowed and what aren't. It says the size and the width and the height or the type. A simple pickup truck is not precluded from an R1
I know,
area.
but you said we would make in the motion no commercial vehicles.
You could do that.
But I don't think it's fair if it's, what's allowed. is what I'm trying
but if there's a violation of some of our zoning ordinance or that's in place for the existing residents, I mean, shouldn't it be an enforcement action brought by code enforcement, not?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. If we get a complaint about a commercial vehicle, like a dump truck or a backhoe, never seen a bulldozer, but, they could be on a lowboy. Some guy brings a bulldozer home at night on a lowboy. Big construction trailers. Code investigates, we take pictures. We'll go out very early in the morning so that we can get it before it heads off to the job site. We send a notice that they have 10 days to take care of the violation. After 10 days, we check to see if the vehicle has been removed. If it hasn't, then we send a $350 fine. So if it's an F-250 with commercial plates, it's okay. If it's F-150, F-250, or a Dodge Ram Power Stroke, those are okay. But if it's a small dump, like Jay said, when I was there today, there was a Hummer parked outside. Obviously, it's not a commercial vehicle. So we have our definitions, and if it's construction-type vehicle, then it would not be allowed.
Maybe he's got the dump truck there in anticipation of the construction of the house.
No.
And then I think I'm gonna just think out loud one further. I mean, an F-150 with a commercial plate wouldn't be precluded by the statute, but my recollection from the planning board, and again, it's just my recollection. If it's different from yours, please follow yours. But that there were a number of like vehicles parked at that location, and then it begins to look like a job site. And I think at that point you do have the leeway to say you could not have more than X number of vehicles parked, and that if they have a reasonable reason why that should not be included in the passage, then say it. But you see what I'm
But
trying
you
to
don't know anything about the dump truck.
No.
All right. We'll move on. Jay, do you have other questions?
Well, let me ask the question of those of you who were there today, because I was there 2 weeks ago. What other vehicles were there today? I mean, when I was there was 4 or 5 pickups and a bunch of cars.
There was, there was at least 4 pickup, I believe there were 4 pickup trucks and plus a Hummer and a car, so there's either 5 or 6 vehicles plus the dump truck.
Those could be vehicles for the people in the house.
Could be.
I'm pretty sure they are.
Well, I think
But I
that
don't know for sure.
there was a concern that there's a lot of vehicles, and there still is a concern, and now one of them is a commercial vehicle, and our concern is heightened.
Well, again, it's 2 different kinds of commercial vehicles. There's the commercial vehicles, and I'm assuming that each and every one of the pickup trucks are probably all right by itself. If you put 6 of them there, then I'm not sure it's okay. But then, as Dan said, and I'm certain that the dump truck, maybe it's a 12-wheel or 16. It's a big pickup truck. So
With the large garage, it has the lineup of the vehicles looks almost like a small used car lot.
Yeah.
Whether and there are families who have a number of adult children who still live there and have that number of vehicles, and I wouldn't have a problem with all of those being there regardless of the number if they did not abuse the code of the town.
Michael, I was there as well, and I saw an immense amount of vehicles, all commercial plate. I saw the vehicle that Jay mentions. How do I know it's only there for, a couple of hours, whatever? I think it's wrong to put that condition on.
I didn't hear what you say, man.
In other words, I saw an immense amount of vehicles that were there, commercial plates, a lot of people with commercial plates on trucks for the tax reasons, etc. If someone brings down something because they're working, so what? How long do we know it's there?
So let me build on what Ray's saying. We also don't know the times we went by if people were visiting, which just added to the number of cars that were there. This house is pretty far off the street, and I agree, if it's violating the code, that should be a code enforcement. But I don't think we should stipulate if people in the house are driving these vehicles, that they can only have so many or things like that.
I don't either. I only mentioned that there were a lot, and I was not intending to imply that there should be a limit if the vehicles fit, quote, within our town code.
All right. I think we've,
Yeah, we
I think we
have.
might be going a little too far. We know there's a problem, we pretty strongly know that there's potentially a problem with the dump truck. How many trucks they have that are commercially licensed is a matter, I think, for code enforcement, and if we feel like we need to add something into our findings, then we will. I don't think that anyone could say, until it becomes an enforcement action or whatever, how many trucks somebody can have of a personal nature, whether they're commercially licensed or not.
Right.
I mean, if there's 4 people in the house and they all want to drive pickup trucks, they could be 4 and they all have side vehicles or whatever.
And
I don't know,
have a
it's
second
illegal.
vehicle each.
Right. So, anything else, Jay?
That's enough. I was gonna ask about something else, but God, we beat that one so much, I'm afraid to ask anything else.
Well, bring up anything you like. I just think
Well,
I'm not trying to quash any discussion. I think we just covered it.
What's the code for rear setback?
11 feet side, 30-foot rear, and 11-foot side is what's proposed,
Right.
50-foot front.
I was just wondering why the property was angled like it was, and if they did it the other way, would it mean that they didn't have enough rear setback is the question. What's the code for a rear setback?
The rear setback's 30 feet. And that's what they're showing. They're showing that the house faces out towards Drake Drive, and that is their 50-foot front setback. And the rear is 30, and then they have 2 sides with 11 feet.
I know there was some question about the house being angled on the lot, but if you look, all the properties adjacent to it are on a cul-de-sac, and they're all angled also. So I think that they do relate to the surroundings, and I think a squared-off property might be less in relationship to things that are around it.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Rich?
I'm not afraid to continue asking questions about the commercial vehicles, only in the sense that I personally don't think that we should be putting a covenant on this subdivision because it's already covered by our code. But my question for Larry is, are you aware of any complaints from anyone other than people on the planning board about commercial vehicles at this property?
No.
And I'm also in favor of some sort of condition requiring an easement to be part of the subdivision plan for both use and maintenance of the driveway. And I think we should put that condition on it.
Right?
I have no further questions, but I am in complete agreement with Mr. Palukas as it relates to a condition.
I do have some, I don't know, wasn't immediately, I don't know, I just didn't notice it, but the water line being on the other side of the road, and I thought they were creating 3 flag lots, or implied flag lots, each with its own touch to the road, but I see now with the water lines running down the middle of that potential second, third flag, I'm curious how you're going to work all that out, so it's just going to be,
Well, if there was a flag lot, it would still have that easement over it for the access and utility easement. But yeah, there would be, they wouldn't be 3 even flagpole sections of the lot. I think it would just kind of, whatever the minimum requirement is, they would make sure to have that for the potential
your
third lot.
intention is to have like an easement that basically runs down the middle of that, 78 feet that encompasses both utilities as well as the driveway?
We're showing a 40-foot wide easement, which covers the driveway, and then about, I think it's 10 feet on the other side of the water services.
Oh, all right, now I do see a 30-foot wide, it says proposed 30-foot wide egress easement, but that does not encompass the water lines.
Yeah, I must have changed it after the plans that I'd submitted to the town, because I just printed this one off today, and I'm showing a 40-foot. I think it was either mislabeled or just realized that I needed to extend the easement over a little bit. But yeah, it would encompass all of the water services with enough room even, to work if there was needed maintenance, that it would encompass that too, so.
And who's going to own the maintenance of that roadway?
Like I said, I think it would be a shared, they would have to, they would basically come up with a percentage for each lot, like maybe, the existing house might have a higher percentage because they're utilizing a greater length of the driveway. And then the other house, this house and then potentially any other house would have, could potentially have a lesser percentage, but I think that's typically what they would do with, they just break it down as into, obviously the water services would be, each house would be responsible for their own, but then with the driveway, just a percentage of the costs would be
Are you going
spelled
to
out.
do a 30-foot ingress easement and a 10-foot utility, or are you combining it all into one?
I think it'd probably be easiest just to combine it all into one. We could do it separately, they'd probably, but like the force main is pretty close to the edge of the pavement for the sewer. And that's also, plus the water's 10 foot separated from it, so it's just as easy to encompass it all into one.
All right. Michael, do you have any?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Greg?
I want to go back to the easement issue and the written agreement in terms of the maintenance. Having been a victim of the situation in the past, I'm pretty sensitive to it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but at the workshop meeting, we did discuss this, and it was agreed that there would be a written agreement in terms of the maintenance of that right-of-way. Am I wrong to expect that to have been done at this point?
No.
It can happen after the fact, and then it's submitted to the, and I can take a look at it if the board agrees.
We've in the past required those to be submitted for approval by staff, the chairman, and myself.
It could be a contingency on our approval.
Okay. I'm adamant about that in terms of the approval.
Yeah, I think we all are.
Well, there's no, these are all private easements between the residents of the subdivision. And at this point, the driveway would be entirely on the lot for the existing house. I kind of think it would be up to the attorney for the buyer of Lot 1 to make sure that they've been adequately protected for for appropriate access to their lot.
Well, the speculation on the part of the board is that this is a family arrangement, which is all wonderful. My concern is 20 years down the road when things change, and then you have an issue, potentially have an issue. The driveway's crumbling, nobody wants to come up with the dollars to repair it. I'd like to see something in writing. I don't care who it is or how they share it. That's immaterial, as long as it's in writing so there's no conflict 20 years from now in terms of one property owner versus the other, in terms of whose responsibility that is.
Okay.
The concept is you would get approval, you just need to submit the easement before
Right.
everything's finalized.
And whether it says 100% maintenance by one lot or the other, just as long as it's there, it's just, okay.
And realistic.
I'll jump in here because I'm dealing with an easement problem on a subdivision that goes back to 1977, and the walking path that everyone's used is not in the 20-foot easement, and the new owner of the lot where the walking path is had his attorney look it over, and his attorney said, you don't have to let people walk through your backyard. And if they slipped and fell on their way down to the bay, you could be liable. So he is in the process of blocking the walking path and creating a World War III out there, and everyone has to go 30 feet that way into the poison ivy to walk down their 20-foot easement. So on this, if this was not done properly, in the future, Lot 1 has a flag 30 feet wide out to Drake, and so the water could have been tapped there, but that's not the way the Water Authority wanted to do it, and it's really their decision. They could run their own separate driveway out their 30-foot flag, and they could do their own force main out to the sanitary sewer. But basically, what we're going to have is we're going to have an easement that it's now 40 feet, and whether it's both the driveway and the utilities, I'll leave it up to you and John, but Lot 1 and the other lot and a future lot will have certain rights and responsibilities and some formula, I thought that made sense, of how they're going to maintain their asphalt. Because if these deals aren't worked out, they wind up in my department, and we're not a law department, but we kind of get pulled into these messes because the neighbors don't want to get a lawyer, and eventually someone does lawyer themselves up, and it creates a real mess. So it's not going to be a big deal, but we're going to need to have it done before we sign off on the plat.
Right, yes.
Anything else, Greg?
No, I'm good.
Bernie?
No, I agree with what Mr. Plukas said, so I want to concur that I don't think we should put any rules except for what's the code. But I do have a question now that we've talked about the water service. I was kind of looking, I don't see any fire hydrants anyplace, and since there's going to be 3 houses back here now, potentially, is that a concern, or is that something that's covered by something else? I'm just asking. I mean, I don't see any on the maps.
Could you add the closest hydrant
Yeah.
to your drawing? And I'll have the fire marshal take a look at it. They should be within, I think, 700 feet of a hydrant.
Because I imagine they wouldn't have let this house in the back get built unless it met that rule.
Correct.
Right. I just didn't know with adding to the density.
Doesn't hurt to show it.
Yeah, there is no code, when you add additional houses, there's no additional restrictions. And since that house is the furthest one back, it should have met it when it was initially built, but adding an additional house wouldn't provide an additional burden. It would just need to also meet those requirements.
That's all I have.
All right. Being done with the board, I'm going to open it up to public input at this point. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in regards to this application may do so at this point. Okay.
Come on.
Come on up to the board.
Microphone.
And,
My name is John Blackwood. I own the property at 222 Drake Drive, which is right in the front of the existing lot I guess we're talking about in the back there. To answer your question about the pickup trucks, there's steadily 4 pickup trucks in that driveway 24/7. And in the wintertime, they all are equipped with snow plows, and they run in and out of there all day long. And if there was a question who's going to maintain that driveway in the wintertime with the new development, I mean, there's 4 snow plows in the existing property back there. It's a great big dump truck, which is there right now, probably an 8 or 10 wheeler. And there have been several dump trucks, shovels, bulldozers parked there from time to time for a day in, day out. I have seen dump loads of debris driven across this existing lot and dumped down the hill in the back of the house by the creek back there, which I don't think is too copacetic as far as that goes. He's in the blacktop driveway business, and that's where a lot of his waste goes down that hill towards the creek back there on the north side of his property. How many square feet is this new existing house going to be? This is just a,
generic footprint.
okay.
Yep, I believe that's a generic footprint. There's no, maybe there is a definite plan of what they're building there, but it's not shown at this point. They have to maintain that within the code and within the setback limits.
What do you mean by within the code?
Well, the code is, for a property like this, it has to be a front
Minimum.
setback of 50 feet,
Oh, okay,
a
okay.
rear setback of 30, and then the side setbacks have to be 11.
And it can't consume more than X percentage of the lot as well.
And I think there's a minimum square footage, but I don't know if there's a maximum.
Setbacks that the house would need to be built.
Oh, okay, okay.
Square
Mr.
footage,
Blackwood, can I ask you a question, please?
Sure.
1,300.
Is it your opinion that on this property now, that they're running that business out of that house?
I would say the snow plowing business is blacktopping business, 50/50, maybe.
All right, thank you. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
This house that's going to be built is going to be approximately, when he put the house back up in the neighborhood, I think most of his neighbors wonder, what the heck, here we are in our ranch houses and split levels, and put that mansion up back there, which doesn't really belong. And I'm wondering if that's what the other two lots are going to be. Similar in size and,
We can ask his engineer if he has any idea, but if not, we can figure out what we're doing.
I always thought that, if you're in the neighborhood, you're going to stay within the ranch or the split level or the cape, and not a humongous four-car garage, place like that.
Yeah.
Well, actually, two-family, there's an apartment back there where her mother lives, and it's a pretty good-sized house for the neighborhood. Okay,
And again, let me ask you this question, and I think I might be asking the obvious, but I'd like to hear you state it. What would be your objection as a neighbor to large houses back there?
Myself, I guess it's all right, but people, I have people over the house and they say, what the hell, who lives back there? That's all.
So other than the fact that it seems like to you an oddity?
Oh, yeah, for the neighborhood, sure. Definitely.
Anything else?
I guess that's all I have, thanks.
I think it's important to note, and Larry will bear this out with me, more often than not, when someone makes an application to a board, whether it's the planning board or the zoning board, and I'm not suggesting that they have ill intention or whatsoever, but they really do bring a focus upon themselves. And if they might have not been complying unintentionally with codes, more often than not, they're brought into compliance with the codes because they've just now put themselves under the microscope. And I think that's probably very true of this particular application.
Would anyone else like to speak in regards to this application?
Hi, my name's Michael Shea. I'm 105 Brookview Drive. So I'm in that cul-de-sac that backs up right next to this monster house that they're looking, if they indeed build it. It's been my experience with this, they're friendly neighbors, but it's been my experience that they all have F-350 pickup trucks. That's a little bit different than the F-250. They're 3/4 tons, and there's about at least 4 of them. The kids like to race up and down that driveway with their high-speed engines going all the time. John's been getting it quite a bit.
What do you mean?
They're ATVs.
Oh, they're ATVs?
Yeah, so I really do enjoy that we're going to probably put another house on the property, but I'm really concerned, how big is this thing going to be? Because if it's going to be like this other house back here, it's just not the right size for our neighborhood. It's definitely, we definitely have small capes. We have a ranch. What do you have, a split? You have a ranch. And it just totally distorts the neighborhood, especially the closer you bring it to Drake. So the house in the back, nobody really knows it unless you're right up on top of it. But the closer you bring it to Drake, the more you're going to see this other big houses showing up. So that's our biggest concern, is how big is this thing's going to get. So
I had a hard time hearing you at first, Mr. Shea. Did you say that you were in favor of having another house being built back there?
I'm in favor of the lots. I'm just concerned about how big of a house are you going to put there? Is it going to be another 3,600 square foot house that this neighborhood's basically only 1,700 foot square houses? So how big is this thing going to be? I actually see you could probably put another 3 houses back there if they were the size of our houses, 3 or 4 or 5. So it's not the amount of houses. It's more like the size. It's really big. So I'm concerned. That's it.
Anyone else? Microphone's open. It's a friendly microphone. You sure? All right. I'm going to close the public input portion of the hearing. Do you have any idea how big a house they're thinking of putting there?
I don't. At this point, there are no building plans that have been produced, to my understanding. He had somebody who was interested in buying the lot, and that was what kind of spurred the this application. But as far as I know, there haven't been any house plans that have been drawn up or anything.
We heard at the workshop that it was a family member. Is that not true?
I don't know. I actually haven't discussed that with him. From the brief discussion I had with him, it didn't sound like it, but I'm not gonna. I don't know for certain though.
We can't really. There's no maximum size house. I mean, you have a lot. There is by percentage of lot coverage. I mean, there's minimum. There's nothing that we can say that they can or can't have a.
No, you can't.
It's already in the code.
R1, the minimum size house is 1,300 square feet, and it has to have 750 square feet, I believe, on the first floor, if it's a 2-story. So
A minimum.
minimum 1,300 square. I was just looking at that today because someone was asking about R3, which is something like 750 minimum, and R2 is 900 square feet minimum. So I can say that the existing home would be hard-pressed to fit within the setbacks on this lot if you're trying to rotate it, so it probably would not be as big as the existing home. I'm also very interested in what you had to say about the watercourse protection corridor in the back and the dumping, and we'll have code out there to investigate that. And I guess one other suggestion is whether the board would recommend that some landscaping be put at the existing home to start foiling the amount of vehicles that are back there. Since this is the applicant that owns the existing home. I'll defer to Dan whether you think that's a reasonable type of request the board could make.
I don't think it's unreasonable.
They're all on.
Wait, we don't get the plan, once the house has been determined, we don't do any site plan review.
No.
And then aren't we almost encouraging nonconformance by letting them shield it? I mean, if it's up to the homeowner to do what they want to do, and it's up to code enforcement to figure out whether they're in compliance.
You know, that's a good point. It's just I'm passing this picture around where you look down and we have this kind of parking lot of F-350s there, and whether or not some trees would be a good idea, or maybe that happens when the third lot is built.
That, Larry, is what is not what we're really here to talk about tonight.
I understand.
We're talking about something else. So to make that condition would be unfair to the current homeowner, right?
Well, I think the point is that it also would be harder to see how many vehicles and what types of vehicles are hidden back there, too.
Well, we can also give preliminary approval if we like, with questions being answered at the next meeting.
No, Section 274A is what empowers you to do site plan review. And a couple of the bullets in that section clearly say that you can consider the adjacent land uses, and you can consider protection of the adjacent land uses. So I don't think you're straying if you're looking for some semblance of protection, given the facts that have been submitted to you in this application.
Yeah, but doesn't it, Mr. Arelli, doesn't it depend on who owns what land? If this is subdivision, will the original owner of the house continue to own both lots, or would it be somebody else?
The applicant tonight is the owner of the house the picture that's been passed around,
Okay.
which is the house where it is suggested there is some congestion that may or may not exceed the code. And if you're concerned factually with the number of cars that are parked there, the manner in which they're operated, and the possibility that there's a home occupation, I do agree. That's the responsibility of the town and code enforcement officers to determine. But that doesn't change the fact that it's in front of you, and that applicant and that property is asking you to do a site plan review, as well as change the subdivision. So, I mean, you're really entitled to consider whatever conditions you think will make this property appropriate, subject to the town code. And I appreciate that the neighbors might see this house as larger in scale than some of the neighboring houses, but nonetheless, if it complies with the code, that's something that we really do have to live with. I can't make an apology for that. Make sense?
Thank you, yeah, it absolutely does. Thank you, Mr.
I guess not. I guess Mike's going to go now.
The addition of dialogue from the neighbor, Mr. Blackwood, about the 4 350s with plows paints a whole different picture for me than a Ford 350 pickup, because I see plows coming out at 4 in the morning, coming home at 2 in the morning. I see the rumbling of, I see it then becoming a full-time base business out of a home. My initial thought was, okay, and where are the plows stored? And is the storage of plows permitted in the number of 4? I'm not talking about a single guy with a single plow. We're talking about multiple plows and trucks and stuff. And it's got nothing to do with the building lot.
Well, it might. I mean, I don't know the circumstances, but I'm familiar with the home occupation law. And if that business is run from that address, and I'm not suggesting that it is, and please don't interpret my comments as having an opinion one way or the other, as I always tell you. But if the facts that are being presented to you make this, or makes it look like a home occupation, then you have every reason in the world to be concerned.
Well,
I'm not suggesting it is.
Business legal address could be somewhere else, but it's so much easier to get out of bed, jump into your truck, and go plowing from your home than it is to.
Mike, if I may, I appreciate the comments, and I guess my question is, first of all, isn't it up to code enforcement, not up to the planning board to enforce that? Secondly,
I agree with you. It certainly is up to the town to enforce it, but it does bring to my mind this concept of a larger than single truck business.
and I think it just confirms the good work of Mr. Goder to notice this and bring it to our attention, and Mr. Ritchie and you for going out and seeing it as well. And it's been confirmed through the public hearing, but my position still is it's something for code enforcement.
Well, I don't agree. I don't disagree with you, but it puts me in a different mindset on how I aesthetically view this home being more than a home.
From the code where it says, the bullet that Dan read, the adjacent land usage, that can be, have an awful broad interpretation. And in my view, the idea, I feel fairly convinced that there's a substantial portion of that business being operated on that house. And yes, it is a code issue, but I'm not so sure that I want to go ahead and grant somebody the addition of being able to subdivide that property with these outstanding issues, be they code issues or not, because I can fall back to the adjacent land usage. The use of the property is out of character with the neighborhood.
Because it's a business, Greg? Or it appears to be that way? Is that what you're saying?
I'm going to choose my words carefully here, Ray.
I know. It is because it appears to be that way?
I'm thinking, given all of the things that have been discussed here, the vehicles being only one of them, it does not appear to me to be consistent with the adjacent land usage.
Well, the lot that exists is not in compliance, but the lot is proposed
Is okay.
is.
But it's still the same owner.
Perhaps if you look at the application, and this, again, is just a suggestion. I don't think you're going to resolve the use of the original lot tonight. You suspect some use, and I think it would be appropriate to give the applicant an opportunity to work with the town to demonstrate what that use is and its appropriateness. You're only asked for you're asked for a preliminary and a final site plan approval, but you could obviously bifurcate that and just grant a preliminary at this point, subject to further submission with regard to the use of call it the parent property, for lack of a better description.
And why would we need to go ahead with even a preliminary at this point?
You don't. You could ask to just put the table the matter and bring it forward. And again, I think it may be an innocent use that isn't what it appears to be. And I think it'd be important because I'd like to think that's what the town of Arundecoit does. We give applicants as well as people who object an opportunity to give as much information as they can.
I don't see any harm in giving preliminary approval pending, additional testimony.
Can we talk about the dumping back there, though? I mean, I realize that there's some gray area about about how many commercial vehicles you can have in size and everything else. Not about the dump truck. There's no way that should be there. But other stuff there's gray area. But if there's actually dumping going on, I'm pretty sure that's 100% illegal. And are we in a stream corridor back there? Does the property adjoin a stream corridor?
Yes.
So is there additional setback requirements for the stream corridor, or is it an EPOD, or?
The line is shown on the drawing.
There's a water course protection corridor, and depending on the width of the stream, there'd be a certain width to that, and that would have been taken into account when the existing home was built. So the water course protection really has nothing to do with the subdivision application. But obviously, any kind of dumping, whether it's just in your backyard or dumping down in a stream or along a stream bank, is something that is not allowed in the town, and we're going to investigate. So we didn't get an anonymous letter, we didn't get an anonymous phone call, we heard something at the meeting tonight, and we'll investigate.
And that's going to be investigated regardless of what we do tonight, whether it be preliminary, final, or table.
That's correct. It's.
I guess my concern is if we do a preliminary or if we table, I mean, how long are we talking? Do we have to see that they're in conformance for 30 days, 60 days, 6 months? I mean, I think
we're giving preliminary pending input that we actually asked for at the workshop. We weren't given the input tonight, honestly, that we asked for. I mean, we did ask about the commercial vehicles, and I understand you weren't there, and maybe the information didn't get back to you, but we did ask about it, what was going on, and we don't really have a good understanding of what's going on there still. So to me, the applicant not being here tonight and then just not having an understanding of what's going on there, leads me to believe that, preliminary approval may be appropriate. Let's get a few more answers to what's going on and how it's being done, and
Should we do secret tonight, Mr. Chairman?
I mean, to me, what I mean, I'm
If you're gonna
thinking,
do preliminary.
what?
If you do preliminary.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think seeker and preliminary is something that I'm willing to say yes to. I mean, if people want to discuss going further than that, we can discuss that. I mean, I know, Greg, you want to table the application. I don't think preliminary is really any different than tabling at this point.
Yeah, it gives it a better time frame.
It gives, it also shows them, the applicant with preliminary, that we have,
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
If we do seeker, we're doing seeker on the issue of subdividing for the
Correct.
proposed house. But since we're talking about the applicant being the person that owns all of the property and the existing house, and we've now heard something about dumping, and can we really do seeker?
Can't do it. You can't segment.
I don't know that seeker has to do with, in this case, the environmental, the dumping or
So the
purchasing.
seeker would be just with regard to the proposed subdivision?
Correct.
I'm not sure if
You look at the action before the board, and the action before the board is subdividing the property. The subdivision portion
is the whole property.
you're subdividing an area of the property that isn't any place near the watercourse protection. It's not in that corridor.
That may not be necessarily true, and I'm just thinking out loud right now. By definition, when you subdivide, you're taking the whole parcel and subdividing it into component parts. So again, what I've referred to as that parent lot, which is the place that there may or may not have been some dumping, that's still part of your subdivision proposal.
I think that while the entire property is under review for seeker, the dumping issue isn't a seeker issue, it's a state environment, I mean, it's an environmental law issue of, the DEC or the town or somebody saying that you have created a hazard or whatever they have or haven't done to the, whereas this subdivision is not going to create any environmental hazards. I mean,
I agree.
Adverse environmental impacts.
his dumping is completely separate and would be, I think, handled separately more as a,
It's purported dumping.
right. I mean,
If there's an engineer shouldn't be saying that he's dumping on the property.
if anything like that has been done, I think it would be handled, in a
Right.
in a legal matter as far as any
And I-
fines or whatever.
And I guess that's where I'm getting increasingly uncomfortable that we're saying we don't want to consider final site plan because there may be too many commercial vehicles, yet we're willing to do seeker, but only on the proposed subdivision.
Well, why don't we?
I'm getting
why don't we
more
go through
uncomfortable with this
why
as
don't
we
go
go.
through the environmental form then and find out where it would fall? If you go through it line by line, is there where on that form would it be where you'd have that particular issue?
Yeah. The issues that we discuss under seeker are that the existing air quality, surface or groundwater quality or quantity, noise levels, existing traffic patterns, solid waste production or disposal potential or for erosion, drainage or flooding problems. Could there be aesthetic, agricultural, archaeological, historic, or other natural cultural resources of community or neighborhood character impacts? Any impact on the vegetation or fauna, fish, shellfish, or wildlife species, significant habitats, or threatening or endangered species? Is there anything that affects the community's existing plans or goals as officially adopted or changed in use or intensity of use of or land or any other natural resources? Growth, subsequent development or related activities likely to be induced by the proposed action. Any long-term, short-term, cumulative, or other effects not identified in C1 through 5, or any other impacts. Types and quality of energy, et cetera. I think we should just table it at this point.
Yeah,
My
I could make
recommendation is that it be
arguments.
tabled.
Table, you know,
Okay. And I want to work with the applicant as well as the neighborhood. And I think significant issues have been raised that even says that perhaps the Secor needs to be really reevaluated to such point that it's appropriate. And it reflects what they're applying for. Now, that would be with your permission to table the application.
Yeah, that's fine.
We have your permission to table it?
Yep.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to table,
Do
Mr.
we
Chairman.
motion to, how does that work?
Yeah, move to table.
All right, when you move the
I
table.
move to table, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, application is tabled.
Thank you.
My short-term memory is, who seconded that?
I did.
We both did, but I'll get the old new guy an opportunity to get
Hey,
out.
wait a minute.
What a welcome.
I don't mean in an age-related way. I'm talking about your service on the planning board. Although, now that you bring it up.
Next item on the agenda is case number PB 1306-2. Upon the matter of request by O'Donnell and Associates Incorporated, acting as agent for Mark McGrath, for revised site plan approval to construct a 1,360 square foot building addition with site-related improvements on premises 420 Seneca Road in a C commercial district.
Okay, thank you. My name is Joe O'Donnell. I'm the architect of record for this project. I have offices at 150 Versailles Road in Rochester, New York. As staff had just said, we're here tonight to obtain final site plan approval of the culmination of a couple years of working with the board and staff to arrive at what we believe is going to be a nice improvement to this property. We feel that this will be the highest and best use for this site. Given that the owner of the property had in the past tried to lease it for a more retail, we had an antique shop proposed, we had a bait shop proposed at one time. The location of the property being adjacent to the 590 northbound thoroughfare and the water tower adjacent to the north just does not lend it to a more retail development you would see along Titus Avenue or Ridge Road. So Mark McGrath, who is also the owner of the Glassman, which is a residential and commercial glass subcontractor, owns the building, will now occupy it for his new operations, which will include a retail area up in the front on Seneca Road, where they will have on display different window products and home improvement products related to windows. Similar to what, I don't know if you've seen the I think it's Comfort just did something over on West Ridge Road in front of the in front of Kodak. There's something similar where they also provide.
Pace.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, we're looking to do something similar to that in the retail area. We've presented this application at several different planning board meetings, and we believe we've implemented all of the requests of the planning board. We also then attended the workshop 2 weeks ago where we reviewed those changes, and I believe we incorporated those final comments relative to landscaping. The request was also to bring a sample of the glass. At one time in the previous meetings, the board had asked that the vestibule be eliminated. It was a meeting when Mark wasn't able to attend. I had prematurely thought that was something he would be willing to give up on. I think I mentioned in the workshop 2 weeks ago that was something they really wanted to use as kind of a display of some of the work that they do. I think we met favor with the board of putting it back in, with the exception of going back to zoning for the setback that would require. Marcus said, fine, if we can always do that, in a couple months down the road if we need to. The vestibule can be added as a separate element later on. There was also a question about the lighting not spilling out into the street from that vestibule. We did bring the sample of the glass. As you can see, it does have a tint to it. And also, the staff, Larry, had mentioned about the the vestibule lighting. Right now, there's 2 down lights in the existing vestibule. If you're familiar with the existing building, it has a notch in it. There's 2 down lights of approximately 60 watts per down light. So I am not concerned in the least bit that there'll be any spillage. In fact, it'll probably give the vestibule a nice glow as you drive by. Land Tech, who is also the civil engineers on this project, I believe resubmitted the revised landscape request by the board members at the last meeting that should be in front of you tonight. And I think that was all the elements that were discussed except for the fence on the east side of the property. Mark did inform me he did not obtain a permit for it, but it was only a temporary situation pending the improvement of this site plan so that he could screen some of the storage of his vehicles from the east property owner. So with that, I'll open it up for questions from the board.
I have just one note, Joe. On the east end of the building where you have a pear, would you change that from a Bartlett pear, which is an eating pear, to a Bradford pear?
Bradford?
What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
It makes sense, our engineer says.
Yeah, the Bradford pear is the pear that you want to put there.
Okay,
Yeah, I
Bradford it is.
Why is that, Mike?
Well, the Bradford pear is a little more narrow, it's more symmetrical, it grows very handsomely, and it's not fruit bearing.
Okay,
Yeah, the Bartlett is a mess.
yeah.
If you like yellow jackets, plant the Bartlett.
Yeah, right. Yellow jackets and deer.
Bernie, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No
Oh,
questions.
Yeah, Greg, I'm sorry.
Question about the fence along that east line there. That is a temporary fence that will be coming down?
Yeah, yeah.
And the screening then will just be the, what are those, arborvitaes along that side?
The lilac forsythias, I believe they, oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, arborvitaes, yeah, I was up top. Yes. Do you want to do a fence from there to there?
I would like to put a fence right on the back portion of that building.
You know where the corner is? That would be the northeast corner of the building?
Yes.
Right up to the property line going north? We would
Going north.
install another fence there on that 20, see where the 23-foot dimension
I
is?
do.
Right there.
So you want to put a fence between the arborvitae and the end of the building?
Right.
Yeah,
So
just
it's
to
gonna
close
be-
that old corner off back there. I mean, that's a suggestion.
Right, this is the fence.
And the purpose of that fence, is that more security or screening?
I would have to say it would be both. More, its main purpose would be more security.
Wait, you show proposed wood fence on the property line, that's the fence we're talking about?
No, he's talking about a fence here.
Coming off the corner of the building directly north?
Yeah, we had that, but it just seemed, we would rather, I think, move that in, but we could leave it alone.
So then you're gonna put arborvitaes that
Yeah,
are kind of landlocked behind the building?
And a fence.
yeah. Well,
So wait, are you
we
putting two
would
fences?
do either or. We would either do this proposed fence, I didn't see that note, to be honest with you, Mr. Chairman. We'd either do this proposed wood fence along the east property line or close up the corner, whichever the board would be more comfortable with, it's fine.
Instead of this fence.
I probably would rather have the fence instead of putting the arborvitaes on
On the
fence
east
right on the
line.
lot line, right.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
We would prefer to have where it shows proposed along the east property line.
So wait,
The wood
now we're
fence.
going to what we've shown on the drawing, which is the proposed fence on the property line, and not a fence coming off the corner of the building?
Yeah, I misspoke. I didn't see that fence proposed there, Mr. Chairman, on the right-hand side. So when the question was asked, I quickly looked and didn't think there was a fence there, and I said we would be willing to put it in that 23-foot area. So just scratch that comment if you would, and
All
we'll
right,
leave
so
it, we'll
the
leave it
drawing
as
is
shown.
with the fence on the property line is
Yes,
the way you
that's the way
propose
we
to do it.
propose to do it. Yep. I apologize for the
Which is
confusion.
actually the way I think I would prefer it.
Yeah,
Well, there is-
that's fine.
wasn't there to begin with.
Like I said, I looked quickly over it and didn't see the note.
Just so that I'm clear here, there's a, as clear as I can be.
So that's
there's
gone,
a-
Peter.
There's a proposed wooden fence along
is shown on the
the
drawing.
east property line,
It comes along here,
along the north,
property line goes along this way.
all the way up to the north edge of the property, right?
That's correct.
Right.
And then as you go along the, I guess if you're heading west, along the north edge of the property, is there a break in the fence there and then it restarts? Is that what
It's an
you're proposing?
existing chain link that
belongs to the
That's the water authority.
water
That's the
authority.
water authority.
All right, what about between where the Lilac and Forsythia is along is there a fence there or not?
There's a little confusion, I think, with the symbols, and I think where you see proposed wood fence, there's a small line with W's in it, or symbol in it, which is for the fence. Adjacent to that is that gray, white bar
Yeah.
structure. I think that is the siltation fence being proposed.
That's what, Mr. Chairman, I'm
The
sorry?
siltation fence.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
And that goes and wraps around the property for the purposes of maintaining any silt during rainfall during construction.
That's correct.
All right.
But the existing chain link fence on the north property line, it looks to me, does that go all the way to the corner of the property line now?
Yes.
It does.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what it's showing.
See, because the symbol for the fence is the line with the X's through it.
Yeah, the
So if
hash
you
mark.
look,
Okay.
it goes all the way along the north property line, and then it's going to
Now, is that new wooden fence going to be board on board, or is it going to be a
board on board, right?
Sure.
That's what you have,
board on board? And how high is that fence going to be?
6 foot.
So it's 6 foot board on board. All right.
And if I'm reading this correctly, that only comes south from that northeast property line
Yes.
to
That's
the
correct.
corner of the back end of the building?
Right. Because that existing chain link is the water authority's fence.
Okay.
All right. Bernie, you already asked all your questions, right?
I'm good.
And then we were up to Greg.
It was my turn.
Yep. And
I'm done.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm not going to start.
Michael, we got your tree changed. I'm fine with the vestibule. Ray?
Okay, now I'm confused again. Forgive me, Joe.
It's okay.
Sure.
That was my fault.
I see on the east side of the proposed building, existing wood fence. Is that?
That's the temporary one that's there now that comes down when construction.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thanks, Joe.
Yep, no problem.
Anything else, Ray?
No, I'm good. I love
Rich?
what you've done.
I just want to double check with Mike, our resident expert. Are you okay with the dwarf crabapple in the island in the parking lot?
If I knew how big the island was, how wide is the island?
The island, it's about 5 feet.
Then,
It looks like it's about a half of a parking bay, so 4.5 to 5
that's what I
feet.
said earlier.
I don't have a scale handy, Mike, otherwise I would.
As much as I like the crabapple, and it's something we even talked about as going there, it will be a pain in the neck eventually. Yes, it's dwarf, but dwarf is certainly is bigger than 5 feet in girth. And a car that was pulling into that spot is going to have a brush up against the car. I'd rather that you put something.
Why don't we just put some more junipers in there?
You could put the more juniper there. You could put a small euonymus or a burning bush, forsythia.
Okay.
Bring an extra forsythia over, but.
I mean, for maintenance purposes in the island, in that area, wouldn't it be better just to have it grass?
Yeah, well, that's my one thought that crossed my mind. That would be nice, I think, a lot easier for
I mean, with
everybody.
the
I'd
salt
rather
and
have
the
that.
plowing.
Or even just some pavers.
Then I think you should do it because
Okay.
because the maintenance of the other stuff that you're proposing therein is tough.
Okay, we'll do the grass.
Just a small piece of property, too small.
It's
Mike,
another
let's
place
put
you
in-
can throw
let's put
some
in
snow
grass.
to.
Mr. McGrath is in agreement with grass. Why not?
Okay.
I like grass.
I'm not going to go there.
Did he say that?
And the only other thing I have as a comment, Mr. O'Donnell, directed to you, I mean, this is a property that's been coming on and off for a long period of time. I appreciate your work as a professional and your representation of your client in being willing to get this property to where we're comfortable with it, so thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Well, it's a combination of all of us working together.
I think we all feel the same. Mr. McGrath, I know you've been before us many times
Yes.
to get to this point.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all your help. And
Sincerely.
we're going to put a nice product together.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah.
I'm confident. I really am.
Thank you.
Jay?
No, I'm good with it. I like how you said, I appreciate all the help. I'm sure that word help was kind of tough to,
No, not at all.
Sometimes it is.
yeah.
Is this application been closed to public input? I'm trying to remember. It looks like we're doing revised site plan. Have we done seeker on this?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think there's much of a risk of doing public input right now.
I know.
We may as well do
I
it.
think Adam wants to get up and talk. Come on, you might have a positive result. You can go out and win it.
Not to beat the idea, but I believe
Let me
the
just go.
board discussed at the workshop to remove the bike rack.
Oh, yeah, we
yes.
did.
Oh, yeah.
Good catch.
Yes, good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, that was left over from the antique store, I think. or-
Nobody was going to bike there.
Yeah.
No,
How do you know?
a problem with that?
I don't have a problem with bikes at all, no.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, like, at this time to open it up to public input.
Seeing none.
Seeing none, we'll close public input. Still think Adam wants to get up here and talk, but. Do some site plan input.
Do we need to, we do need to do secret for this, right?
Yeah, because, well, it says revised site plan is highlighted, but, what?
Still advertised as a new public hearing.
All right.
So
Are we really
I would
doing-
say yes.
Preliminary and final site plan?
It would be revised site plan approval
All right.
For final.
for final, right?
You don't want to come back?
Well, let's start with secret, right?
Yes.
You want to do secret? No? Mr. Chairman, on the matter of PB 1306-2, for secret, I move, it's a type 1 action and a negative declaration.
Second?
Oh, it's unlisted.
Yeah, it's,
Oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I'm just thinking
I'm sorry.
unlisted.
Is
Excuse
this
me.
unlisted?
It's not type 1. It's not big enough to be
Is it
type 1.
type 2?
Yeah.
It's, no, type 2 would be ministerial acts. It's
Okay,
unlisted.
all right,
Okay,
sorry.
I revoke my, my motion, and matter of PB 1306-2, matter of secret, I move it's an unlisted action, negative declaration.
Aubrey, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? No? Motion carries.
Is this preliminary and final, Mr. Chairman?
I guess it's
Yes.
final revised.
Is it final, or is that preliminary?
And I have that the following revisions and conditions are change the island with the crabapple / junipers to grass, which I like grass. Change the Bartlett pear to the Bradford pear. 6-foot board-on-board fence southeast corner to north property line. And remove the bike rack.
I'd make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Let me ask for a revision a little bit. On the plan, on that little bit of an island or peninsula, whatever you want to call it, there are also 6 juniper upright.
Yeah.
We don't want those.
That's what I said, change the island with the crabapple / junipers.
Oh, did you say
To grass.
crabapple / juniper? I missed it, / juniper. I'm not familiar with that species anyway. / juniper.
They're very tough if you rub up against them.
I make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
McDonald.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.
Congratulations, Mr.
Thank you very
McGrath.
Thanks a lot,
Thank
you
you for
guys.
investing in Arundecoid.
Yep, really appreciate all your help.
Thank you again.
Thank you, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
These guys, upright heads are really kind of tricky.
We have no minutes, so may I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to adjourn?
You may do so.
I'll second.
Do that?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Second in that. She's looking up like, whose place was that?
Thank you.